everyone. Welcome to a phoned-in edition of ARG Presents. I'm your good friend, your good buddy, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who makes J2ME mean he's a jerk to me. It's the Brent. Shut up, jerk!
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
That's not very nice, the Brent. Especially this week.
You interrupted my phone time.
Well, that's not, and now it's showtime. And on the show, and what a show we've got. Because I have to say, last week I badmouthed this piece. I put the bad mouth on it, and by God, we're going to do it anyway. Because we're doing BAM. It's Java games this week, man. J2ME. Yeah, that kind of blends in there a little bit. Retrospect. You know, let's talk about this category, the Brent.
All right.
Because when this came up, I was not happy. Holy smokes. I was like, what in God's name is this? Because I didn't know. Did you know what this was?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How did you know? You're dumb as a sack of rocks.
There's a streamer that has played dozens of these games to completion. Macaw45 on Twitch. And he's highlighted some of the best, some of the absolute dream games of these. And you'll find that almost all of the best are Gameloft games.
Okay, well there you go. No kidding. That's interesting. So just for the uninformed like myself, I didn't know what J2ME stood for, except for jerk to me. Like I said, it actually stands for something. So what you got here is a little thing called Java. Now you had Java Platform Micro Edition, right? But then they had Java 2 Platform Micro Edition. There's your J2ME.
Well, the M is actually mobile.
Micro, actually. Micro, mobile. According to this. This says micro. You can fight it out with the people at Java. If anyone's still there. They may have closed the doors on the Java boat. Now, these are old cell phone games that range, I guess, from what, the early 2000s until when? Do you know when these things cut off?
I think they're a little before 2000. I think they go up to about 2014-ish.
You know, the funny thing is, and I was sort of talking to you about this before the show, I didn't know much about these. In fact, I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about them. And the reason is I didn't have a cell phone when these were. I mean, I didn't get a cell phone until it's been in the last 6 years where I got a smartphone.
Yeah, and we need to specify a little bit. When we're saying cell phone, we're meaning not smartphone, not your Androids, not your Apple products. These are more of your flip phones, something with a push button digital pad for your number pad. Screens, yes, this was obviously the era of screens and color screens, but you can't think modern for this. This is way before our modern phone ideas.
You know, I had one of the Nokia burner type phones, the cheapo specials from back in the day. The kind of they break and bang, throw in the garbage after they're done with them. You know,
burner phones.
And the only games I had for that were a purchasable version of Uno that limited you could never win. And I had that one. Because a lot of the games, and I had something else, but the games were not complete. And this would come with the phone. It would send you some kind of crap game. Now, I'm assuming these games are early on, because having looked through this list to pick something out, like a lot of these games were a lot better than I thought they'd be.
Well, you have to understand, this actually covers a very, very wide berth. I mean, you've got some of these games that are black and white on the old dot matrix style displays.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the time frame we're talking. We're talking almost 2 decades, if not 2 decades, of mobile entertainment before the big guys came in and put, once you standardize it into Android and Apple, and to a very, very, very lesser extent Microsoft, now the battle lines are drawn and no one uses J2ME anymore.
Do you figure there was a cutoff where they switched to whatever they use now? Like what, a year cutoff?
Well, yes and no. I'm sure there are still J2ME phones being produced in some of the other countries that aren't US or China or UK. Some of your less well-to-do countries, I'm sure there are still those type of phones. I mean, there are still those type of phones as throwaway phones, burner phones, like you were talking about before, that could possibly run this kind of stuff. Even those phones, though, I would imagine have upgraded to at the very least, Android. Android's the free OS.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about anything like that. So I would say these J2ME OS capable phones are very, very, very dead at this point.
I was looking. I found a list of like the mobile games. This encompasses all mobile games, not just these. This is including modern stuff.
Yeah.
And the amount of WAD that these things generate. These things generate a lot of money. Now, I'd heard numbers, but I'm just to throw this out there. They got a game in here that came out in 2015. All right, probably not in this format. Probably whatever Android was. It's called Honor of Kings. I've never heard of this game, but clearly someone has, because according to this, it's generated $13 billion. Billion dollars.
Yeah. Well, also, another thing you have to remember is when these very first came out, a lot of these type of games were not purchased. You paid to play them. Some of them had a pay-to-play model.
Right. That was something that came around late in the game, because the ones I looked at, they didn't seem to have that.
No, that was one of the early business models.
Really?
When people started selling these games direct, it kind of killed that kind of market. Just like your old MMOs used to be pay per minute, and then the monthly subscription came out, and then free to play came out. So you kind of kill the price structure behind you when you change something that radical. But the big problem with J2ME and all mobile games and applications were no true dedicated storefront. And when you've got that kind of, you had to get these games either by downloading them from a computer and then attaching them to your phone and transferring them that way. Or, if your phone was capable of going to a website, you could kind of download it that way. Plus space. Space on these phones were so minuscule. We're absolutely not talking gigs. In some cases, we're not even talking dozens of megs. Some of these things, if you had 4 meg, you were the big man on campus. So when you're asking a person to download a game, now most of these games were less than 100K, and they did so much with that so little bit of storage space. Plus, the memory on these phones were so minute, and you had to stick all this crap into memory to run. So they had a lot of obstacles they had to overcome to produce quality, and it's pretty amazing some of the stuff they did pull off.
I'm assuming some of these games won't all work. I mean, you'd had to upgrade it to a better phone for some of these.
Well, and that is, of course, the other problem is J2ME is the OS, it's a programming language, but we'll say OS just for simplicity's sake. Some of this stuff was, the instructions inside of it were chip or phone specific. We're actually going to go over that with my game, where something that played on one phone, you could have a phone comparable in stats, memory, storage, all that kind of stuff, but it wouldn't work because it didn't have the right chip. Kind of like an Intel versus AMD type situation.
Interesting. One thing's for sure, after looking at these money totals, they're making and did make a lot of money in this market. It's funny that I never thought about well, again, I didn't know much about the J2ME thing, but I mean, after looking over the games, and this is almost like its own console. In fact, it's better than a lot of the consoles we've played on this show. Like, I'm not going to lie. When we sat down and looked through these, I was baffled. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I knew Java was a pretty capable language, but I mean, this stuff was off the charts good.
Yeah.
And we had so many choices. I mean, holy smokes, do we have choices. This was a bounty of riches this week.
Yeah.
And so it was our duty to pick a couple of these, and it was our pleasure in this case, because, man, we could have picked anything, and we did. What did you pick this week, the Brent?
Oh, I'm starting us off?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, let me explain how I got to this game.
Oh, man, here we go.
I, with the help of Pajako, and Pajako's in chat, who dumped an absolute plethora of information on us to get us started.
Because we didn't know.
I decided, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can on my phone. My Samsung Note 5, that's where I want to play these games because that was an option. And got everything going, got the emulator, downloaded a bucket of 5,000 jar files, and that's what these run off of.
Java archive, something that means.
All right. And I started flipping through games. And even though I had the emulation set up and I was good to go on that front, there are so many variety, and I don't mean like shooter, platformer. I mean, there's such a variety in screen sizes and speed and color and sound that I went through probably a dozen games before I found one that fit my screen correctly. And now, granted, I could have probably got some of these other ones working with tweaks and stuff like that. But then I was looking for instant gratification. And I found Alpha Wing. It was the first one that came up and worked just by hitting go. I said, okay, Alpha Wing. Obviously, this is a shooter. How in the world are you going to do a shooter from these old phones? You're never going to be able to shoot fast enough while trying to hit another button on a keypad. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I was intrigued. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to explore this, if I'm going to put the time into playing this, I'm going to go ahead and pick this as my game. So that's what I picked. And before we get into the game, Alpha Wing, I want to talk about the company that made Alpha Wing. And that is Macrospace. Macrospace was an early organization into the mobile gaming market. And they functioned up to about 2005, where they merged with GLU Mobile, GLU Mobile.
All right.
And GLU Mobile was a huge player in the mobile game market. A lot of your top games, or either graphically pleasing or innovative gameplay or sound. I don't think it ever had a whole lot of a bonus with sound, but a lot of it is attached to them. And it's kind of funny because they became so much more than just a mobile phone game maker. They really had their hand in a lot of pies. A few things you might be aware of, Aaron. Do you remember a little thing called GameSpy?
Yeah.
All right. GameSpy, for those who don't know, way back in the day, you couldn't just connect to other computers to play games. It was a hassle over the internet. You basically had GameSpy to tie all these people together and really make it easier for them to team up and play with their buddies. Well, they didn't make GameSpy, don't get me wrong. In fact, they did just the opposite. They bought GameSpy and then obliterated it. They slowly picked it apart until literally nothing was left. And they did it in the most backhanded way because they would just shut down game servers that have been running for years and years and years. No warning, no telling anyone. It worked and then it didn't. And that was kind of their MO. Where Macrospace was based in London, when they merged with Sorrent Incorporated, and that's who those two companies are who made GLU Mobile, it became a U.S. company. And let me tell you something, these people were hell-bent on money, and that's all they cared about.
Why would they buy GameSpy and then destroy GameSpy? That seems like they're hell-bent on being dumb.
No, well, I mean,
where's the money to be made there?
I guess, I don't know if
it sounds like they took a bath, what it sounds like to me.
They did not. They did not. They were an incredibly profitable company, and I will get to that. And that was not their first acquisition, but that was their first really large acquisition. After that, they caught the eye of a little company you might have heard of, Aaron, called Tencent. right?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Well, Tencent bought 15% of GLU Mobile to the tune of $126 million.
Oh my!
So this wasn't just some fly-by-night company. That shows you they were the big boys. And of course, shortly after that, they bought a game called Quiz Up, which is a server-based game that you would go, you do quizzes, and they killed that dead too. They bought it, and then less than a year later, they shut it down.
Well,
I don't get it.
I don't understand how these people are making all this money if they buy things and then destroy them.
I don't know.
Is this at some point spelled out in your walkthrough here?
It is not. In fact.
So all I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a Walmart, shut that sucker down, and then that's when the big bucks show up? So I'm not good at business.
In the end, as of all fates of video game companies, it seems, Electronic Arts came knocking.
Yeah.
All right. And this is just in February of 2021.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So they said, you know what? We're going to take this GLU and we're going to absorb them. What do you think that deal was worth, Aaron?
It'd be a lot because like I said, those games make bucks.
Just a wild guess.
I don't know. $1.2 billion.
You're close, but half off.
Oh, wow.
$2.4 billion.
Wow.
Now, this is, like I said, this is a company that came back from microspace making these Java games, and now Electronic Arts valued them at $2.4 billion. So that tells you these games were not just these fly-by-night, oh, look at this crap games. This was big business, like you had mentioned earlier. So what, pray tell, would... this company, one of their first games, how awesome was it? Well, Alpha Wing was not awesome.
Oh, but you point. Oh, go ahead.
Well,
this better be good. Boy, I tell you, you're so far no explanations, and then you come out inside the game, you fix garbage.
I didn't say it was garbage. I said it wasn't awesome. Alpha Wing was Macrospace's first shooter. And they put it out there, and it was incredibly successful. And in fact, there are multiple Alpha Wings on the market. And from talking to you, it sounded like you actually played the wrong one, or at least not the one I intended.
I played the one that you intended, but I found the video for different ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is another case of you have to program for the phone that it's going for. The Alpha Wing that I played was specifically designed for the Nokia brands of phone. Which is not all, they actually released another one that was based on the other chipset.
It's prettier, much prettier.
It is. Also, Alpha Wing had a sequel, Alpha Wing 2.
Also prettier. It had another one called
wildly
Alpha Wing 3D.
Successful. So, no.
Oh, sorry.
Alpha Wing 2 was not 3D. Alpha Wing 2 3D was 3D.
Yeah, my bad.
So
that's a lot of stuff.
It's so confusing. But that's what a lot of these companies did, was they would, if they could get their foot in the door with a title and they could get some money off of it, they would start reproducing it at an alarming rate on all these different chipsets and all of this just tweaked technology, right? And that is how they expanded their empire. That is how not all, but that's how a lot of these companies work. I just found that very unique to this market, that you could come from such humble beginnings in, 2003 was when this was released, to a $2.4 billion company.
Yeah.
So what is Alpha Wing? Alpha Wing is I'm not going to call it a bullet hell, because it's not a bullet hell. It's like a bullet, like, purgatory. And you fly your ship, you can destroy certain enemies and get weapon upgrades. The unique draw of it, and what really kind of set my mind ablaze, auto fire. It automatically, continuously shoots for you.
That's pretty smart.
So all you have to do is fly your ship around. you dodge bullets, you line up with enemies, you collect your power-ups, all with your, flying your ship around. But all of the shooting is done automatic, and it's not super rapid fire, but it's not slow either. And that's, I don't know if that was their claim to fame. I'm sure other games have done that, and there's plenty of arcade games that have rapid fire. But this was all automatic. What, Aaron, did you think when you first loaded this up? Did you have any...
Well, in all honesty, I actually played your game before I played mine, because I had to install software on Windows software to play these games on Windows.
Yeah, you didn't play these on phone.
Yeah, I played on Windows. I used a program called BlueStack, and then I used another program that's a J2ME emulator that works in BlueStack, and then you have to put the games in it. But I mean, it sounds complicated. It's not that bad. I'd used BlueStack before, and so anyway, I knew your game worked. I hadn't picked one at the time, so I thought I'm going to try Brent's game, and then I was like pleasantly surprised that it worked. So and then I thought, well, I was also like you. How's this going to work? Because I've played games with the phone, and they're not easy to play.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and sure enough, that like you said, that had auto fire. I use the keyboard to play these games. It's funny in the emulator that actually simulates, like, it gives you a keypad on one side and part of the keypad on the other side, so you can use the mouse or you can use keys in your keyboard. I use keys in the keyboard, so I had an advantage to your average person.
Absolutely.
With that said, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it played well. Of course, my expectations were low, and the auto fire was smart. Power upgrades. I mean, I would call this a shooter, a standard fare style shooting game of the era. It did not reinvent the wheel. It's like someone saw a shmup and was
R-type.
Yeah, it's like, listen, let's make this watered down for a phone, and that's what this was. I wasn't offended by it, and it was not the easiest game I've ever played, but I had the advantage of playing it on a PC with a big screen and everything. How this would work on a small screen phone with all the bullets, that might be a whole different story.
I played it on a phone, like I said.
What'd you think?
And the way that this works on the emulator I have is half of your screen is the screen that you would see on a mobile phone. And the bottom half of your screen are where your controls are. Sometimes there's a little overlap depending on what the game is, but for the most part, it's pretty okay. The game is slow enough to not be a problem. And I would assume that a lot of this is actually due to screen blur. The screens we have nowadays, we're so spoiled. The screens of yesteryear were not nearly as clear, didn't have nearly the refresh rate or the resolution. So I would assume that the speed of this was based a lot on that. I found the game incredibly easy. In fact, I never died out, because you've got a shield you can use, and like I said, it's slow enough that I just didn't have trouble dodging stuff.
Because even you would have a phone screen bigger than these people had back in the day, though. Probably half my screen is probably pretty close to a flip phone size screen. As you see, this was set up as a vertical game. The later renditions of this were horizontal. How popular was this game, Aaron? Well, it was popular enough to get an IGN review back in the day. This review was from December 5th, 2003. And the IGN, no one covered mobile games. No U.S. market covered mobile games. But IGN did the review of this game, and they loved it. They gave it super high praise. And that kind of shows you where this game fell in the grand scheme of things. It was a very popular game. That's why it got sequels. That's why it made a lot of money, and it helped make their company a lot of money, because this was probably one of their most successful games. They also did stuff like Caveman, Crash and Burn, Gold Miner, and then, of course, everybody did board games, your Connect Fours, your Checkers, that kind of crap. If you think about a game like this, though, when it came out on the phone, and I just mentioned to you that the games I had played was like, I know I had Uno, and I had some other lame game, okay?
Right.
And so, on a Nokia phone, and so if this honed into view, on my phone, this would be like off the charts awesome compared to what I'd seen. So you can see how this would get over because they're like, my God, this is an actual game.
Yeah.
With controls and fun and stuff, you know.
So it's definitely a product of its time. Nowadays, how does it stack up? It's poor. It's poor because it's so slow. That's really the biggest complaint. It's smooth. I'm not saying that, but it's slow. Moving around. The bullets that are coming at you are very slow. Everything feels like it's in slow motion. But back in the day, this was pretty high up the charts for 2003. This was, I wouldn't call this a revolutionary game, but it was a game that made their company a lot of money, and it ended up making the company value overall incredibly valuable. Aaron, do we have a Discord review?
We got one review from the man himself, Pajako, who chimes in. He says, a side note, the original Alpha Wing was one of the very early J2ME games, and if you play it, it will show. Not much on the screen, very limited enemy sprites, and very small enemy sprites.
Yeah.
So if you can get Alpha Wing X for your device, go for that, as it's a much more updated version of the game, which I've also played that. And it looks a lot better. It's got a better background.
Yeah, the sequels for this were mightily improved.
And a couple of the sequels even had cool music.
Yeah, I mean, this had decent music. Yeah. That's something I didn't. It did not. It doesn't do sound effects and music. It just does music. But the music loop was pretty good. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. He played the earlier version. Also, it's worth noting that some early devices couldn't do multi-button input, so autofire just made the player's life easier. Later devices could, but because mobile developers had to support 200 plus devices with a mixture of screen sizes, hardware memory constraints, and indeed button arrangements and input limitations, many developers opted to do as few builds as possible to cover many devices. That much said, having come back to this after many years, I was sad to discover a fairly dull shooter. There isn't much variety with the enemies, and after a while the game pretty much turns into a semi-bullet heck game. Now I can forgive the lack of variety in sprites, as this will have been a file size limitation thing.
Yeah.
But this game is pretty dull, even allowing for that. Levels seem to take forever, and whilst the length of the game will be to compensate for some lower-end devices, it's a boring game. Alpha Wing also has a couple things that really didn't sit well with me. The shields only worked for enemy bullets, so if you get clipped by an enemy, the shields are active. If you get clipped by an enemy with shields activated, you die.
Yeah.
Also, after what seems like an eternity, levels would just end. Even with enemies on the screen, and you would just fly off, sometimes straight through enemy bullets or the enemies themselves.
Yeah.
There are literally hundreds of J2ME games and many good shooters, but sadly, this is not one. 4 out of 10, he gives this thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's more than fair.
Especially when you're looking at it with modern eyes. But, you know, back in the day, this was cutting edge for 2003.
Do you remember what this? Did you get an idea of what this sold for?
I tried going to their website, and I actually tried buying it. Unfortunately, the Wayback Machine, the links to purchase the game were not available.
Very good.
So, try as I might, I did not get this to a price for this.
No worries, no worries. So,
and obviously, you can't eBay this without, I guess, eBaying an old phone.
Yeah, so there you go. That was Brent's look at Alpha Wing. An interesting game. I was glad to see it work. But now let's move into clearly what is the main event of the evening. All right, now, I'm no man's sucker, brother. I went to look for games, and a game literally retched up off the page, and it gave me a roundhouse kick right to the face. And what is that game, that special game? Bam! It's some Chuck Norris, man. Chuck Norris, bring on the pain. It's a Chuck Norris game. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Chuck, Brent. Chuck Norris. I want to get into him a little bit before we get into his game. Chuck, by the way, no one knows his real name, Carlos Ray Norris. Chuck's his nickname, sort of.
Sure.
Born in 1940. Okay, now, a lot of people don't know that Chuck Norris is a legitimate black belt in Tang Soo Do. He also started his own style, and there was a school here in Barbersville for a long time that Chuck Norris had. It was called the Chuck Norris Martial Arts Academy. And every year when I was in karate, we would fight the Chuck Norris kids and whoop them, I might add. But one thing our dojo didn't get was a visit from the man himself. He would come around at least once a year to all of his schools.
That's pretty good.
That's because he's Chuck Norris. So Chuck Norris, they used him in a couple films, right? Including a very famous film with his buddy Bruce Lee. He was one of the villains in Way of the Dragon. And so people were like, listen, you should get into acting, Chuck. You're not bad. You know, so his first role as a star, and I've seen this and love it, it's a movie from 1977 called Breaker Breaker. It's a CB film where he's a truck driver. It's a great movie. I highly recommend you go check this out. If you want to see Chuck Norris whoop a bunch of people in this movie. This thing made money. They were stunned. And so someone was like, hey, let's give him another film. And they did. Good Guys Wear Black. And then he went on to do a ton of great films, including A Force of One, my personal favorite, The Octagon. That was an awesome one. Eye for an Eye. He also did another one of my favorites. He did Lone Wolf McCade. He did Silent Rage. He did a bunch of great films. How many of these have you seen? Any of them?
I'm not a big Chuck Norris
The Missing in Action trilogy, which is, oh man, so good. And then probably my all-time favorite of his movies is Firewalker, which is like an Indiana Jones ripoff. Great movie. And this guy made tons of movies and they made money.
He did.
Okay?
He made a ton of movies.
If you don't like it, learn to love it, brother. So they were like, listen, Chuck, you had a good run in the films. How about trying your hand at television? He's like, all right, yeah, man, let's do it. And bam, Walker, Texas freaking Ranger. Mom and Dad loves that show. Walker, Texas Ranger, where he plays a Texas, he plays a Lone Ranger down there. That's all, you only need one. And
a policeman, for those that don't know.
He's a bad dude. And he was even in one of the Expendables films, along with took his place alongside all the other action stars of the era, your Sly Stallones. I mean, don't fool yourself. In the early 80s, Chuck Norris was up here, way up here. All right? And he's still up there. He also hawks a bunch of crap on TV. Yes. You know, the Total Fitness Gym was one I remember him doing. But he had some other stuff. He's a New York Times bestseller. All right? He's done it all. Okay? But there was one thing he never done. Right? He never had a proper game. Okay? Now, why is that, you wonder? Well, there's a reason. There was no game fit for a man like Chuck until a certain game came along. And that's Chuck Norris' Bring on the Pain, Brent. Now, had you ever heard of this game?
Yes, I'd actually...
You're kidding me.
Yeah, no, this is one that McCall 45 had played, so I was quite familiar with it.
Oh, good.
Although I was glad that you chose it, because it definitely highlights both ends of the spectrum. So this is, my game was the very early days, and your game was not at the end, but really after it hyped up tremendously.
So Chuck Norris, there was a thing that happened in the early 2000s. No, I got to get into this. And it was these Chuck Norris facts, okay? And everyone's heard them, and they were funny. They're still funny. But these started making the rounds. I don't know how this started, but they started making the rounds. And so Chuck Norris sort of became a hot property again.
Yeah.
All right? So just to give you a couple of Chuck Norris facts, if you spell Chuck Norris in Scrabble, you win forever, right? Time waits for no man unless that man is Chuck Norris. Stuff like that. Chuck Norris breathes air 5 times a day. That's it. He's all man. Chuck Norris tears cure cancer. Too bad he's never cried, all right? These are the Chuck Norris facts. These were popular as hell. And so his name got up there. And there's a weird thing happened. He became this more like legendary, cartoonish, like Lord. I was like a god among men. And so this game pounced on that. And here comes Bring on the Pain. Published by and developed by Game Loft. I think you mentioned Game Loft.
Yeah, they were a big name.
I was gonna go over the games that they made, but we'd be here for a year.
Yeah.
Because they made 4 billion games.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sit here and tell you the good ones and the bad ones. Licensed games, yep. Puzzle games, oh yeah. Like games about stuff you never heard of? No, I don't know. Games that were based on video games that you heard of? Yes. They did everything.
Yeah.
They've done everything. They must be worth $18 billion. I was going to read the people that worked on this game, but there were over 30 people that worked on it. Yeah. So let's just say lots. How about that? This game was available, I think it originally was on the iOS, and then it got released on a lot of stuff, including the old BlackBerry in 2008. So this game is about 5 years ahead of yours. And this shows you the quantum leap in this between when your game was released and when this was released. Because this game would be at home on any console of the from the 2000 back. You're gonna put this game out there.
Yeah.
So what is the game here? Well, from what I read, Chuck Norris he kicked so fast and so hard that his round kick went around the world and he kicked himself in the back of the head, gave himself amnesia. Okay, so he wakes up and he's got to take care of business because while he's been unconscious, the two scumbags have went out and they've started taking over America. Chuck won't stand for it, brother. The two people doing it, real life people, Fidel Castro and Kim Jong-il. They're back. Everyone's favorite geeks, world leader geeks. And Chuck Norris has got to take care of business. So in this game, you control Chuck Norris because it wouldn't be a Chuck Norris game unless you controlled him. And you go through, and it's basically a beat 'em up, but they do mix up the gameplay quite a bit.
Yeah.
At first, you're in like the forests of I think it's Cambodia, and so this is the Chuck Norris from like Missing in Action. He's in his camo gear. He's got his gun. Now you don't have Chuck Norris's infinite power at the beginning because when he knocked himself out, he has amnesia, doesn't remember all his moves, and so you're earning cash in this to go to a dojo in between rounds and buy back the moves from the sensei, right? So. And that's how the game works. So the first level is a straight up walk. In fact, there are a lot of levels that are diverse, but there's levels where you have a gun and you go through and just mow suckers down. You got those levels.
Yeah.
Then you've got some levels where you don't have the gun, and so it's physical combat.
Yeah.
With your hands and feet, and the roundhouse kick, the dreaded roundhouse kick. The way the game goes is once you finish a level, it goes to the dojo. You spend your money on the new moves. They didn't reinvent the wheel here. But what makes this game great is a lot of what makes the game great. Of course, you've got Chuck Norris, so you can have him say any kind of crazy thing you want, and he does. But the geeks in this are funny because they'll just be hanging around. They'll be talking about making soup. They'll be talking about like the weather, stuff like that, and then Chuck Norris just runs in just like bah, and kills them. And then occasionally you'll come to some bad guys who they're like, Chuck Norris is here, and they just leave.
Yeah,
They just run off the screen. They're like, we're not gonna fight that guy. Of course, it is Missing in Action, Chuck Norris in the first level. You're also rescuing prisoners. This is something you'll also do occasionally. You have to go up and open the cage, and they say, thank you, Chuck, and they run off. It's good stuff. The controls I found good. I mean, such as they were. The gun, sort of much like your game, it sort of just shoots on some levels, and you just sort of control where you aim the gun. And those levels are like, there are levels in this where you get to be like a chopper. But there's also levels where you're a marksman, and like you're shooting at guys that are in a house and they come out on windows.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure but you don't have to shoot. It does that for you. It mixes up the gameplay elements quite nicely.
It does.
If you're watching now, we're on a screen where there's a driving rain and Chuck has to barrel through it. And if you don't have the controls done right, he'll fall over. There's also levels where you have to tap the button real quick to do stuff like break stuff or whatever. One of my favorite moments of the game comes early. It's when you're in Cambodia, you're fighting these soldiers, and there's a Jeep sitting there, and it says, there's an option that says hit 2 or hit 5 to use the Jeep. And so you think to yourself, Chuck's going to get in this Jeep. Chuck picks up the Jeep and just starts slamming it on suckers, which is great. I didn't see that coming. A whole Jeep. There's also, in the hand-to-hand levels, he'll occasionally pick up a phone booth or a power pole, whatever he wants, and just start slamming people with it. They're like, just getting creamed. It's so funny. And between the Chuckisms, the bad guys, and even the ultimate bad guys when you fight them, even they're sort of funny. Like Fidel Castro has a jetpack, that keeps malfunctioning. And so you can only hit it when he's on the ground. And so he's whacking that thing, trying to get it to start back up. It's so funny. Kim Jong-il has a tank. They're the two big bosses in the game. There are sub-bosses. The game runs on for 12 levels.
Yeah.
I beat it. I'm assuming you beat it as well.
No, I didn't play all the way through it. No.
I beat the whole game, and it was fun. The sound effects are good. It's got good little tunes that play in between rounds. It's neat that when you go back and buy up you spend the money to buy up your moves. The moves are good. One of my favorite moves is Chuck. There's one point where you're fighting a helicopter, but you can use it any time. But Chuck has this move where he just looks up and just goes bang, and his hand shoots a bullet, because he's Chuck Norris. It was great. I loved it. What did you think of this one?
Like I said, I was aware this existed before, but this week was the first time I played it.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good, campy fun.
Yeah.
And the thing is if you don't know what's going on when you start the game, right? I mean, the intro stuff. If you read all the text, you can kind of see where they're going.
Yeah.
But if you just play the game, when you get to that Jeep section, it seems like a normal, sort of like Punisher in the arcade type game. You know, you're just gonna run and shoot people. But when you get to that Jeep section and you pick the whole Jeep up and start slamming them, at that point you go,
yeah.
Now I see what we're doing here. I completely understand.
And the cutscenes are campy too.
Oh, the whole thing.
And when it's loading, it'll have Chuck facts that it plays.
Yeah.
Including Chuck facts about this game.
Yeah.
Like,
very fourth wall.
Also, you can't die. Did we mention that? Because you're Chuck Norris. You just start the level over. So you can beat this game. I beat it in an hour. You know, but I mean, here's the thing. It's $1. So this game sold for
$1.
This game sold for $1, and I can tell you without hesitation, this is the best $1 game I've ever played. But please continue with what you were saying.
It has enough elements. The buying your moves, the different types of gameplay. Now, they didn't reinvent the wheel, but you have to remember this was on a flip phone. A flip phone.
I know. And the thing is, he looks like Chuck Norris. Like, when you leave Cambodia and you go to Texas, it looks like you're in Texas. They've got it all. I mean, it's cheesed up as you think it is. There's cowboys, there's flag, all the crap you'd expect. And Chuck Norris changes outfits when he's in Texas. You know, it looks great. And you think to yourself, this was on a phone? This feels like it could have been on any console.
This could have been on a Game Boy, no problem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One would wonder why it didn't get ported to those things, because I'm assuming it did pretty well.
I don't know. I didn't look up numbers for this, but it really shows you there are these type of games, especially in the Asian markets, that are this caliber, this quality of games that I've seen played, that it would blow your mind. Especially when they start getting into some of the 3D elements, rudimentary 3D elements, and a lot of times it's just used to enhance other gameplay styles. But it shows you that Java had the ability to do this stuff. Phone hardware had to catch up to what Java could do. And when all of that eventually happened, it's about the same time we all flipped to Android and Apple phones and smartphones with these, high resolution, high refresh rate screens. It was just at the peak of these things. J2ME could have been massive. It could have been an Apple. It could have been an Android. It just got outpaced by just a hair. And when Google started giving away Android for free, that was the end. Stuff like J2ME couldn't keep up.
I will say, just a few more nuggets about Chuck here. Chuck also has the ability to, you can do a super maneuver if you get your meter charged up. He also has the ability to, whack guys and blow them towards the screen, a la TMNT, which is great. They mix this game up so well. They could have literally phoned this in, no pun intended, because they had a good engine for the beat 'em up.
Yeah.
But they do stuff like timed areas where you have to do stuff. There's an area where you have to punch a punching bag real quick to impress this cowgirl. There's, like I said, there's a series where, and you find out because he's in Cambodia and he thinks, boy, I'd like to be in Texas, and then suddenly he's in Texas. Well, he forgot. Yeah. He's got the ability to travel through time and space. Yeah. So his sensei's like, listen, you should have just killed everybody in Cambodia. He's like, oh, yeah. So he goes back there. But when he comes back in, he flies a chopper with a machine gun, and so you have to it automatically shoots. You just fly through and shoot everything. It's great. There's all sorts of elements in this that they mix up. And so the guys that put this together, maybe they were scared of Chuck Norris. If they didn't do a good job, because this is varied. I'm not just putting it over because, hey, it looks good on a phone. No, this is really a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, an excellent game.
Yeah. Like, this isn't a good J2ME game. This is just a good game.
That's right. I mean, this would play on anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is you need to go play this. You know, me and you both have a lot of these collections, coin ops, and GameX, and all these other, arcade, where they get a bunch of different types of games, different consoles.
Yeah.
So why have I not seen one of these that has a big load of these? Because my God, these are every bit as good as anything you're going to play.
I think because they've got a bad reputation off the bat. Because we saw the beginning of a good game and the end era a good game. Don't be fooled. There is also a absolute ton of garbage.
I mean, I have no doubt. And maybe I'm falling in love with the game because I just happen to stumble upon a good one.
Yeah. But to finish my thought, I think these are just getting to the point where they're easier to emulate. I know we had no problem, but we basically had an inside man with Pajako who spoon-fed us. But
this was nowhere near as bad as a lot of the stuff we've had to emulate, though. And also, I ran these with no issue.
Yeah,
I had no problem.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So, I mean, and like I said, I beat mine, so I know it goes all the way through.
But it's just getting to that point, and I think that it's once we're not all the way there, because different chips and different screen sizes and that kind of stuff is still an issue. I think we're going to see a big boom of this, though. Because you have to think, the people who played these games and have history with these games aren't quite old enough to have nostalgia for them yet, in my opinion. I think probably 10 years from now, we're going to see this hit big. You know what? It's going to be a big scene.
One thing I like about this show is we have zero nostalgia for this, for example.
Correct.
So when we come across something that's gold, it's gold, brother. We're not looking at it in rose-tinted glasses. I urge you to check Chuck Norris out. I did, believe it or not, I found reviews on this, lots of them actually. KnowYourMobile.com gave this 100%. Pocket Gamer UK 90%. Pocket Magazine 4 out of 5 stars. Retro Gamer gave this a 79%, and App Spy gave it 4 out of 5. And the reception of this thing was great. It was quite over with its people. They really dug it. We did get a Discord review on this. Pajako says, coming from twilight years of J2ME, this was really one that shows where the platform got in terms of graphics and gameplay. Whilst J2ME games were never going to compete with true gaming handhelds, J2ME games were largely designed for quick 10-minute fixes for you to play while waiting on the bus or sitting on the toilet. Chuck Norris Bring the Pain is no Final Fight or Streets of Rage, but what it lacks in exciting gameplay, it certainly makes up for in entertainment, humor, and variety. Littered with now legendary Chuck Norris stories and outrageous in-game bits like being able to pick up a truck and hit enemies with it, or just being able to shoot baddies with your finger is hilarious. Sound is a little sparse and not exactly the greatest, but that was par for the course for J2ME in its heyday. Graphics look really nice, and when you look at home on a 13-bit machine, I agree with that. The game has a few little issues, like some items that can be picked up, but also share the same sprites and those that cannot, so it gets a little confusing. I will say, to talk about that point, you can get this game, pick up barrels, for example. Mm-hmm. And occasionally you'll come along to a barrel, you can't pick it up, and you're like, what's going on? It almost always means it's going to play a part in a cutscene or story that's coming right up, so that can get a little confusing. I also found it possible to repeatedly hit enemies while they were down without doing any real damage, which, as I discovered, was a problem in some of the time challenge levels. With a variety of gameplay, including a light gun-esque shooter levels and vehicle levels, this is a pretty entertaining game. Not one you'd probably go back to after completing, but still not bad overall. And a better example of high-end J2ME games, 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So pretty glowing.
I think that's a very fair review.
I really do think this one is a real dandy one, Brent. And I think if you've got the capability to try these, I would give this a shot. So, with all that said, in closing on this particular category, definitely we want to put this one back on the wheel at some point.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to explore.
There's an endless variety of these, and I have no doubt, looking over the titles, that there's a lot of garbage in there. But there are also interesting titles that I would be interested in looking at that are like based on like arcade properties and stuff. That I'd be interested to see if what they did with these properties to make them playable on the phone and make them go in a different direction.
Sure.
So it'd be a lot of fun to go back one of these days and check out. But I gotta say, I was wrong. J2ME, I'm a fan, brother. They did a great job, and even your game, which we sort of buried, it wasn't. I mean,
no, that's not fair. We didn't bury it. It just was not as good as your game for sure.
I'm just saying. That game was leagues better than I expected any of these games to be. So when I loaded that up, I'm like, hey, we got something here. And then when I loaded up mine, I about fell out of the chair. So, yeah.
Yep.
You know what else makes me fall out of the chair, Brent?
Drunkenness?
Well, and the wheel, but yeah.
Oh, okay, the wheel.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, bro.
Wasn't sure where you're going with that.
What are we adding this week to Brent?
Well, we boo-booed last week, Aaron.
No, you boo-booed.
I mean, I will allow you to take the blame for it. That's fine. We did not put on a Retro Rewind
You
piece.
did not put on a Retro Rewind
So
piece.
I corrected your mistake, and we just added ColecoVision as the Retro Rewind this week.
Good choice. You know, I just picked up the Coleco Atom FujiNet card. So there's going to be, next week at the Computer Club, you're going to get your fill of Coleco, everything, under the sun, brother.
Did you say spin the wheel?
Spin that sucker. Good hearty spin. And the winner is, what do we got there? And the winner is...
It's a new one.
All right, what is it?
NES Bootlegs.
Oh, man.
NES Bootlegs by Blip Blop. NES Bootlegs by Blip Blop.
If Frodo is still in the house, he did an NES homebrew stream a while back that we looked at. And so when I saw that come up, because this homebrew looked god-awful, so at least it's bootlegs and not homebrew.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's sort of, okay.
I got a couple announcements this week to Brent.
I'm going to make one before you.
Okay, go ahead. You make yours first.
Due to some unfortunate events that took place this week, I did not get to make a video to include our newest Patreon, Dryer Lint.
You're off the hook
now,
on
Aaron,
that one.
you have to know something here.
Yeah.
See, our new Patreon, it's not Dryer Lint. It's Dryer Lint 17.
All right.
And I think that's very important to specify because Dryer Lint, like 26, that guy's a jerk.
Oh, I see.
But Dryer Lint 17, we're good to go there.
You sure don't have those backwards?
No, I don't. We're good.
So what you're now listen, I'm going to let you off the hook because you had a rough week on that, so there's no worries there. Now, I'm going to brighten your week because we got a package this week. In fact, I know you didn't watch the show last night because you never do.
Oh, boy.
But me and Bo,
hey, I can't help it when you keep switching up the time.
Me and Bo opened a package, and there was something in this package that I'm sure was meant for you, and it's a package from our buddy Rushi, all the way from Germany, the Brent. I'm going to present you with this now. I think you're the only man that can truly appreciate this, and here you go.
Oh.
There it is. It's the legitimate boxed copy. The Mouse and Cat.
That's incredible.
This is a Philips video pack.
That's going right on the shelf, man.
Yeah, and
that's awesome. Holy
complete.
crap! Complete.
We want to thank Rushi very much. Rushi also sent us over a couple magazine hardback digests, and he sent the Amiga Mini over the 8500 Mini over that I ordered a while back. So thank you, Rushi. I know he was in here earlier. And,
wowzers.
We appreciate that. I know Brent would look at that manual on that thing. Holy, so he multi-language.
Oh yeah. Not just your common English, Spanish. We got Arabic. We've got Portuguese, Spanish. I don't even know what that is.
The video pack was a console for the people. I think we both agree.
Apparently,
on that.
all the people.
So
thank you so much.
Rushi's a good guy there, and we also had some other things in it. We thank everybody for sending us goodies last night. Now, I want to make 2 announcements that we stupidly didn't make on Amigos, and so these are very pertinent for what's going on. Number one, this coming Saturday, which by the time you watch this will still be a Saturday that will be coming. It will be the 30th of April, Brent.
Yeah.
It is going down. It's a Taze Valley Classic Computer Club.
Oh, the local jobber.
Let me tell you something. This is going to be the biggest, most elaborate Classic Computer Club you've ever seen because of me and my people. We're going to have the FujiNet with the Coleco Atom. We're going to try that thing out.
All right.
We've got the Apple II GS that I got in the mail this week. We're going to fire that sucker up. And we're going to test drive the A500 Mini. We've got all these things to test drive at the Classic Computer Club. No one needs to bring anything else. I got it covered. It's all me, brother. So that's going to be fun. That'll kick off around 6:30 or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 30th. That's Saturday, April 30th, Brent. That's going to be fun. We're at the Boat Mansion. Hopefully his internet will pony up this time around.
Need to get that fiber.
Secondly, I want to announce once again that we have set a date for the International Computer Club. We're doing the local computer club, but let's say you don't live near Taze Valley, and I pity you that don't, because what a paradise it is. I can't say that with a straight face. Anyway, we do an International Computer Club, everybody, and this is for everyone to attend, to come down and show off your various projects and whatnot. We have scheduled this for May 21st at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 4:30. Please pop in to the International Computer Club area and set yourself up. Get a presentation in. Right now we've only got a couple people signed up. And I know why. It's because me and Boat haven't announced it for 2 straight weeks.
Makes sense. That's the best way to get your shows over.
Listen, so here's what I learned. Don't do 70 shows in the heat at once. Because we were both, Boat almost died last night doing these shows. So this is going to be a lot of fun. International Computer Club. I've been in talks with a friend of a friend who there might be a couple big wheels coming to this one to do a little dance. So it should be a good time. Again, to say it once again, that's March 21st, 2022. So you've got just about a month to prep for this and to go back over what we like. We like practically anything. Book reviews, game reviews. You want to talk about console mods. You want to talk about computer mods. What you're doing with your Amiga or your Atari or any computer, anything you want.
You want to review reviewers?
Yeah,
go for it.
If you've got a project you're working on, if you've got if you're programming, you've got programming tips like Happy Coding. We'd love to see you back in there. If you've got anything that is remotely pertinent or relevant to the topic at hand, which is computers and video games, you're welcome. Oh, and if you've got products to hawk them. That's really the reason I did this.
Hawk them like the loogies you want.
I saw the Amiga Bill's Computer Club. They had the guys from Vampire come up there and give a demonstration. I thought, that's what we need. We could have guys do that, and we could do it to everybody, like internationally. Well, we don't get that stuff with Frank. Frank does. Frank's really the only person that takes advantage of that. But if you have a business and you want to talk about your product, don't think you're shilling, because that's what it's for. You're shilling to the people that you want to buy your product, and they want to listen. So you're more than welcome to pop in and do it. It should be a lot of fun. That is May 21st at 4:30 p.m., Brent. We should probably mention something else that Boat didn't talk. Boat was like, we got to probably push that. We didn't talk about it at all. It's Boat Fest. I know we're going to mention it one more time. Boat literally, he almost expired, Brent, so we're going to cut him some slack. Boat Fest, June 24th and 25th in beautiful Taze Valley. Get your tickets now at boatfest.info. It should be a lot of fun. We'll be there with so much stuff. All the stuff I just mentioned for Computer Club, plus a ton more, and a virtual pinball machine. That'll be a lot of fun. Get your tickets today. Plan a trip over. It'll be a good time. Do you have anything you want to close with before we take this thing to the house?
If you would like to find out more about the Mousing Cat, you can check out issue 204 of ARG Presents, where we reviewed this in detail.
Yeah, that was a real unique one, eh?
Yeah.
And also graphically violent.
It was.
That's the end of us. We'll see you next week. And until then, load up your old phone and fire that sucker up. Get you some gaming on. It was awesome. Adios, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector-style graphics and Bartbit for his amazing music. Would you like to help keep ARG spinning? You can do so at patreon.com/ARGpresents. Just like these fine folks. Rolo, Olaf Hope, Terry Howard, John Schaller, The Slow Norris, Frodo NL, Chris Folds, Mitsuyama, Jason Warnes, Rob Black O'Hara, Andy Craig, Andy Jones, Kevin Bean, Pachaco 6502, Bitter Blitter, Anthony Jarvis, Steve Rasmussen, Bernhardt Lucas, Dave Velociraptor, Graham W. Vetke, Roshi, Mr. B, David Terrett, Super Tech Boy, Oram, Sundown, Texas Foosballer, Air Shack, Retro Algae, John Dykeman, Jerry Dennington, Xenon-K9, Templar Mar, On Collective, and Laurent Garou. They all have access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord channel, their name displayed and called out in the credits, and that warm, fuzzy feeling that they help keep ARG spinning. And you can too! Have an idea for a wheel piece? Send it to us at argpresents@mail.com. Did you know BoatFest 2022 is a go? The Retro Computing Festival put on by the Amigos Retro Gaming Network. You can find out more at boatfest.info. We film live every Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can watch the replays on YouTube every Wednesday. Hope to see you there.